Hi, and welcome to Alive with Chronic Illness, a podcast dedicated to exploring what it's like to live with and not in spite of chronic illness. Today I'm joined by Lixxy, who will be talking about her experience living and working with chronic illness. Thank you for joining me, Lixxy. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much for having me. So I'm a business strategist. So I run my own business. I've just finished 10 years in corporate. And for 6 of those, I've been living with chronic pain conditions.
So how have you found that then? That's quite a big change in things that have been going on. Like, how have you found that in terms of your career? What impact has that had?
Yeah, it's been up and down for sure. So it all started when I had a car accident in 2018. The car accident itself really wasn't that bad, but my injuries from it were, I ended up with really bad whiplash. So I couldn't move my neck, my arms. I had pain all down my spine. It was, yeah, really, really difficult to do anything especially that first year. I remember my sister having to brush my hair for me and things. Like it was pretty bad. And then the painkillers that I had because of the injury destroyed my stomach. And I developed stomach issues, managed to fix the whiplash pain, but the stomach issues have continued. So I've now had them for 6 years. So I've got IBS, which is obviously a chronic pain condition, and something called non-ulcerative functional dyspepsia, which essentially means that my body thinks that I've got a stomach ulcer. So I get the pain of a stomach ulcer, but I don't actually have a stomach ulcer. There's nothing for them to remove or fix. I just get the pain from it. Yeah, it's been really challenging. Like the pain can be kind of debilitating and you don't want to get out of bed. But as most people with chronic conditions, I think will appreciate, life goes on. Like life doesn't just stop because you're in pain. And that's something that I was very aware of and didn't want the pain to kind of rule my life. I wanted to still do all the things that I'd imagined doing, even though I had a lot of pain. And then I managed to fix the whiplash. So my back injury was healed for about 3 years. And then last year I developed rheumatoid arthritis. And after some tests, it was discovered that I have a susceptibility to inflammatory conditions. So as well as the rheumatoid arthritis, I've also got fibromyalgia, which is another inflammatory condition that just causes pain for seemingly no reason. So I've been dealing with those and I've still got the stomach pains. So I've racked up 4 chronic pain conditions. I seem to be collecting them for some reason. And yeah, the whole time I've just been really conscious of the fact that I don't want it to rule my life. That it would be really easy to just stay in bed because sometimes it hurts and I don't want to get up. And what I've had to do is build things into my routine so that on days when I'm feeling unmotivated and like I don't have any energy, making sure that I get the important things done and then kind of leaving everything else that doesn't need doing. And I think generally as people, we're not great at doing that. Like if you've got a to-do list of 100 things that you want to get done, we want to get them all done, or we kind of feel like we're failing or doing something wrong. And over the 6 years, what I've learned is that that's absolutely not the case. Like doing what you can is the best thing that you can do. And on those days when you don't have the energy or the motivation or the pain is too high, getting the bare minimum done is amazing. And that's definitely been a huge mindset shift that I had over the course of the last 6 years of dealing with these.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that feeling like needing to get the bare minimum done and how important that is and how the achievement of the day can be getting out of bed. It doesn't have to be ticking off all 10 things on your to-do list. And I think that can be a very big change. I noticed that myself, like when my health declined and my energy was a lot more limited, I couldn't do everything I wanted anymore. I had to be really selective. And it can be a really big challenge to stick to that.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely involves a lot of mindset work, which is one of the things that I work on every day when I'm able to. So keeping your mindset really strong and doing things on the good days so that when there's a bad day, you're kind of prepared for it is the attitude I like to put into it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good attitude and try and be prepared ahead. So is there anything that in particular that you like to do to prepare?
Yeah, so like working on my mindset is the key thing that I do. So every day I journal, I write out my goals, I do affirmations, I listen to uplifting music. And on a good day, that feels really good and it makes me feel better. And I know that on a bad day, it's going to have a positive effect on me. So then when I'm having a bad day, I will still try and do those things. But if I haven't managed it, at least I've done them for the previous days and it makes the bad day not feel quite as bad because I know it's not going to last forever. It will pass. Like generally my pain it comes in waves, but for some reason, none of the pain conditions match up with each other. So one day I'll have stomach ache and a really bad stomach pain. And then the following day, the arthritis in my neck will be bad. And then the next day I might have like barely any pain at all. So it all comes kind of in waves. And knowing that I've done the work on my mindset previously makes me remember during the pain that it will pass and that it's not going to last forever. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of it, it feels like it's never going to end. But I know now that that's absolutely not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be really overwhelming, especially like, I guess even now, like I've had pain flare-ups all my life and I still have ones where I think, oh, is this ever going to end? But remembering that it did end before and it will end this time, it's just such a, I guess it's hard to always be positive, but it kind of gets me in that mindset of, okay, I can get through this because this will end.
Yeah, definitely. And being positive isn't about being like an absolute ray of sunshine all the time through it, but it's those things. It's remembering that it will come to an end, or I've had this sort of thing before and I know that it was really rubbish, but it did change. And that's the kind of positivity I think that we're looking for when we're dealing with chronic pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm definitely not a ray of sunshine. But yeah, I think that does really help. So I guess your journey started when you had the accident.
Yeah, it definitely did. Yeah, I had no kind of physical health conditions before the car accident.
Yeah, so like you described that mindset and the importance of building that mindset. I suppose it was such a big shift that it needed that mindset change for you to be able to learn how to live afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Going from kind of healthy bodied at 28 to not being able to move my arms really wasn't on my bingo card, as I'm sure it's not on anybody else's. And it was definitely, and what I think one of the things with chronic pain that you have to get used to is that you can't do all the same things that you did previously, and getting over that fact can be quite difficult. And it took me a long time. Like I was still doing everything that I wanted to do, and then just dealing with the pain of it. And it's taken me a long time to get to the point where I will turn things down and not do certain activities because I know it's going to hurt and it's almost not worth it. Like I will find other things to do, to spend other ways to spend my time that aren't going to cause me as much pain. And that shift in itself, I think, has been a big thing.
Yeah, finding that balance of still being able to do things you want to do, but maybe adapting them and actually thinking, how much energy do I have? Is this something that I is worth spending the energy on? Which it's helpful to have that mindset, but also can be, I think it can be a bit of a double thing. Like I find that I do the same. So on one hand, it helps me manage my symptoms, but on the other hand, I guess it can be frustrating when you want to do things.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a balance to it. And it's not to say like you should, if something's going to cause you loads of pain, that doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do it. Obviously, you need to make the decision yourself as to like, is this going to make me happy enough to deal with the pain afterwards, kind of thing. And if it's not, if you're just doing it because you feel like you should and it's going to cause you loads of pain, it's probably something that you should be turning down. But if it's so, for example, I've got tickets to go and see Taylor Swift at the Eras Tour in 3 weeks. I know it's going to cause me absolute agony standing there for 3.5 hours dancing along to Taylor Swift, but I'm going anyway because I want to, and I'm so excited for it. But I already know that that following week for me is going to be I'm going to be in a lot of pain, but it's something that I've deemed worth it, and it's that kind of thing. Whereas if you invited me to go clubbing this weekend, at a nightclub and what have you, I wouldn't go because I just don't deem it worth it doing all the dancing in the club surrounded by people who are going to jostle into me. That's not something I deem worth it. Whereas the Eras Tour, I absolutely have deemed worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's it. It's about making those choices and being able to make that decision, empowering
Yeah,
yourself to
absolutely.
decide this is worth it. I'm still going to do this thing that I love. But actually, like you said there, I'm not going to push myself in situations that I don't want to be in. And I think almost that element of it for me was actually quite freeing because before I think I did put a lot of pressure on myself to do things that I'll be honest, I didn't want to do. And I think a lot of people do. So
Mm.
almost that's been an unintentional side effect of my health is that now I don't really feel that pressure anymore as much to sort of push myself to do things that I really don't want to do. And I'm just doing out of obligation.
Yeah, it's definitely a blessing in disguise. That it makes you be more firm with your boundaries, I think, and just doing things, not doing things because someone expects them of you, and just doing the things that you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the key word there. You learn your boundaries
Mm.
and how precious your time is as well.
Definitely. And I think it also takes a lot of strength to ignore the opinions of other people. So I've definitely had people who have tried to convince me to come and do things and like, oh, maybe the pain's not that bad or it'll be fine today. And having the strength to ignore that and continuing on kind of the path that you want to do, I think is a big thing for people to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as people with like chronic illnesses, we're often faced with a lot of other people's opinions about how we should live our lives. People who don't necessarily know what it's like to actually be living our lives.
Yeah, they know absolutely nothing. And also, if you're living with a condition that's not visible as well, it can be really difficult. And which I do, like you can't see my pain; it's internal. So people don't understand why I'm in so much pain for doing such a small thing, and it. I don't fault them for it because they can't empathize with it because it's not something that's happened to them, and it can be really difficult for people to imagine that you are in that much pain when you don't look like you are. But yeah, it definitely takes some resilience learning to kind of block those things out and listening to your body and what your body needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So how was that journey for you then to building resilience? What were the biggest moments for you?
So at the beginning of all my pain, when it started, I was working full time in a corporate sales job, which meant I had targets to hit and I had career goals and aspirations and things that I wanted to do. So it took work. It's still taking work. I'm 6 years on, and there are still days, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to sit at home and curl up in bed. But I kept reminding myself of the fact that I had dreams, I had goals. The pain hopefully wasn't going to be permanent. It would at some point go. I didn't know at this point that I had long-term pain conditions. I thought it was short-term. But I just kept reminding myself that I didn't want the pain to rule my life and I wanted to do things with my life and I would just do them in pain. And I just kept reminding myself of that. And it got easier over time as it does. And then the whiplash went away and I just had the stomach problems. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, the stomach problems are awful, but I've got rid of the back pain now. So at least I've only got one of them that I can deal with. So this is great. And then last year, when the rheumatoid arthritis and the fibromyalgia hit, I honestly couldn't believe it. It's the worst pain I've ever felt. And when I got diagnosed, the first thing I did was buy my nan a bunch of flowers because she's had arthritis for like 83 years. And I was like, I've had it for 6 months. I don't know how you've done this for 83 years. This is awful. But again, it was that same exercise of, okay, yes, I'm in a lot of pain, but I want to get promoted this year. Like one of my goals for 2023 was to get to the next level in the job that I was in. And I was like, I'm going to do what I can. And again, I was doing not the bare minimum, but like as little as I could to be as successful as I can. So instead of working 24/7 and doing 150% effort, I was putting in what effort I could to make the most of the time that my body felt like it could do anything. And it ended up paying off and I did get promoted last year. But it was just, again, it's that constant cycle of reminding yourself of the goals and how you want to feel and what's important to you and using that on the days when you don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah, definitely. And so you were saying that you were working quite long hours before. Did you cut down your hours or are you still working the same hours you were before?
So it was as a general rule, I would work 9 to 5, and then at sometimes, depending on the project or the sale I was doing, I'd end up working more or traveling more. So I definitely traveled less because I didn't want to be away from home, and I did a lot more of it remote, which was fine with the job that I was doing. And then there would be days when I just couldn't do anything, so I would not work, and I'd make up for that on the days when I felt like I had the right amount of energy. So I might have one day where I had good energy, my pain was really low, and I would do like 13 calls in a day in my corporate job because I had enough energy to do that. And then on the days when I didn't have enough energy, I would do 0 calls. I wouldn't speak to anyone. I might do some laptop work, or I would take the day as a sick day if I needed to. And it's just finding that balance between the two and managing your pain levels alongside the expectations of the job that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is important to take those days when you're not feeling well or you can't be in and you can't do, you're not well enough to be there to actually take that time off or to make adjustments so you can work from home, things like that, so that there's something in place so you can rest when you need to.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the best things I did was tell my manager in the corporate job of all of my pain. He knew what was going on. He knew that I'd have days where I was not okay. He was checking in about my hospital appointments. Like he was great, but also the fact that I was conscious about telling him when I was having a good or bad day really made a difference. So that he knew not to expect anything from me on days when I couldn't do anything, and being extra supportive on the days when I was doing loads and helping me kind of get ahead, ready for the times when I couldn't do anything.
Did you get any support in the workplace or anything like that?
Um, I mean, from my team, yeah, absolutely. Like people would pick up the slack when I couldn't. My manager was great. Other than that, I don't really feel like there was anything they could have done. I worked from home, so I was pretty comfortable. I've got all the equipment. Obviously, I've got the right desk chair, the right desk, that sort of thing's already set up. And yeah, other than the support that I got directly from my manager, I don't feel like there was more that they could have done.
So how has it transitioned from where you were at then? Are you talking about last year and you're building up to the promotion that you wanted to get to now?
Yeah, so last year was a tough, it was definitely a tough year putting up with the pain, especially as it was new pain that you'd not dealt with before. I think with chronic pain, when you get used to the pain, it becomes slightly different to when it's a new pain. So dealing with the new pain was really tough. And there was about 8 months last year where the only thing I did was work. And if I wasn't working, I was curled up on the sofa watching TikToks of the Eras tour, to keep me company. And it was a really tough period of my time, but I put any energy that I had, I put into work because that was what was important to me last year and getting that promotion. And it paid off and I got promoted. And then I got diagnosed, I got medication for the arthritis. I found out that I got fibromyalgia and how to manage that, which is generally with exercise and moving around. And then started physio and kind of started to feel like I had a bit more control because I knew what was wrong. I knew what the treatment plan was. And it started to get a little bit easier. And then this year, I was kind of at the beginning of this year, I was doing my physio. I was in the gym as often as possible. So generally, I would like to go 5 times a week. My pain doesn't always allow for that, but that's the goal. So I was in the gym as often as I could. I was dealing with my stomach problems and yeah, just generally started to feel like I was getting some semblance of normal back, from where I was. I could move a bit more because last year I could barely move at all without literally being in agony. And now we're in like July. I got made redundant from that corporate organization in March, but I'd been running a coaching business alongside it. So I decided to take that full time. And now I said to someone actually at the weekend that I finally feel like I kind of got my body back and I can do the things that I wasn't able to do last year. I'm still in a lot of pain and it still hurts, but it's nowhere near kind of the agonizing, not able to move at all pain I was in last year.
Yeah, and that's really great that it's gotten to a slightly more comfortable level. It is difficult, isn't it, when you're in a lot of pain to get things done. And like you said, when you're working to get the promotion, that all you were able to do was work. And I presume that's because like the energy as well as the element of that it was just taking all your energy.
Yeah, definitely. And I should probably point out as well that I don't have kids or a husband or anyone else to look after. It was just me, which I'm so grateful for at this point because if I'd had to have taken care of other people at the same time, I don't think I'd have been able to. But I was able to put all of my effort into the job, which is for me was the most important thing last year.
It's really important to prioritize what is important to you. I'm sure it was a very, very challenging time. And I've had times before where it's been something that I've got to do. There's a project coming up and it's pretty much you just work on the project and then that's it. That's kind of your energy. So I
Exactly.
definitely empathize with you there. And it is really hard to be in that position. But when you've got that goal in mind, it does help get you through.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I'm such a believer in goal setting, which is something I teach in the business now. Is if you've got a clear goal, it makes it so much easier to achieve the goal and focus on the goal because you constantly remind yourself of what it is that you're working towards. So when you're having a day that feels rubbish or when you're in loads of pain, remembering the goal can kind of help you get through and it gives you something to focus on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess now working full time with your business, and you sort of can set more boundaries in place and have your own flexibility. Do you feel like your energy levels and symptoms are more manageable now than they were last year because of that? Or is there any kind of impact on switching from being employed to being like self-employed?
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit more of a journey than I was expecting. The idea of going full time self-employed, the amount of effort that I put into being employed, I figured I would easily transfer that into being self-employed. That's not quite what's happened. I think because you have a lot more freedom being self-employed. So on the days when I really don't feel like doing much, I don't. I don't do anything. I make sure that my clients are taken care of and that's it. I don't do anything to work kind of on the business. So I have that freedom now, which is nice. But I mean, on the downside, if I don't do any work in the business, I'm not going to get any revenue because I'm going to have no clients. So it's definitely a balancing act between using the freedom that I've got from working for myself, but not abusing the freedom that I've got by kind of giving into the pain all the time. So that's definitely a balance that I'm still trying to strike at the moment. But yeah, it's nice having the freedom to having more, even more freedom than I did to manage my pain. But yeah, like I said, the corporate company that I was working for, they were so good that it like I'm glad I was working for them when it happened.
Yeah, and you touched on a really important point there. I guess like when you're employed, you have things like sick pay, but when you're self-employed, you don't. So there is that kind of reliance on you being able to be there in order to make the money.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why in my business I kind of routinize everything. So I know what needs to happen every week. I know what I need to do every day so that on the days when things aren't feeling great, again, I do the bare minimum that will keep the business running. But then I also know what I need to catch up on the days that I have got the energy. and things like bulking your content, bulking your emails, making sure I know what days I'm meeting clients, that kind of thing, and having everything kind of planned out so that when you're on a day where your energy's dipped lower than you expected or your pain's higher than you thought it would be, it's fairly easy to manage changing the day so that you can quickly notify whoever it was you were supposed to be speaking to, or reschedule things, and kind of take the day slower than you intended to.
Yeah, and that gives you a lot of flexibility and freedom. And I think that can really help balance energy in like a positive way. So you're still doing the things you want to do, but they're just a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, definitely. Like I had a day, I think it was the week before last, where I was in a lot of pain. My stomach was not okay. And I was meant to be recording an episode of my podcast. I was meant to be doing, I think, a live on Instagram. I'd planned loads of other little tasks that I wanted to get done, and I couldn't do any of them. So I did the live on Instagram because it is live and I didn't want to reschedule it. But I've rescheduled the podcast recording because it's not live. I can record it at any time and it will go out whenever it's meant to. But having the giving myself permission to kind of do that and reschedule things, I think is a skill that we have to remember to learn, because it can feel like you're letting people down. But the guest that was coming on my podcast, like she was quite happy to reschedule, of course, because I wasn't okay. And it's not like we were going to miss the date that it was going to go out. And then for the rest of the day, I sat on the sofa with my laptop and edited the other podcast episodes that I already had. So I didn't need to talk to anyone. I got to sit somewhere comfortable, but I still managed to get a little bit of work done in the business.
Yeah, and I think like I guess for me personally, it's nice actually to have those distractions on days like that, just something to do to take my mind off the pain, but something you can do like in the comfort of your sofa.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're not kind of wallowing in the pain, but you're doing something that is productive, but doesn't take much energy.
Yeah, definitely. Although I do have my fair share of duvet days.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't live without them. And I think they're needed sometimes. I think like I'm definitely a more productive person. I would rather get things done, but you have to absolutely let yourself have those days where you really don't want to do anything and you just want to curl up on the sofa with your duvet and not talk to anybody and not do anything. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. And I'm the same. I like to keep busy. It just helps me cope better with my health. Definitely.
Mm.
Like, it's been a big thing, like probably a big symptom management thing in terms of like being able to cope with the symptoms is keeping busy and being productive because it gives me a purpose that allows me to sort of strive towards something. But yeah, it's so important then to also let yourself have that downtime when you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the struggles that I've got with mine is that the fibromyalgia is managed with movement. So if you move more, generally the fibro gets better. However, if I move more, the arthritis gets worse because that's the nature of arthritis. So it's definitely finding that balance of what works for you. So do you need to move more or move less to manage the symptoms that you've got? Or do you need to be productive or less productive depending on how your pain is working? So finding what works individually for you is absolutely key.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so hard when you've got multiple conditions. Conveniently, they don't all have the same treatment. They don't all get
Well,
better with movement or rest. They just like to challenge us.
yeah, and like the fact that I've got two that are completely contradictory, it's just like, really, come on now, can't you just match up?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess we're coming to the end now. So I'm kind of interested to just hear a little bit about any kind of tips or key takeaways that you've experienced of working with your chronic illnesses that you think were the most beneficial for you or that might help someone else.
Yeah, mine would definitely be the two kind of big things that I harp on about is like planning your time ahead of time so that you're not going into any day like not really knowing what you're focusing on. I found that really useful because then on the days when I don't end up doing anything, I know what I've got to catch up on. And then also picking like your daily big three is what I call them. So there's the three tasks that you're going to complete that day to kind of move you towards your goals. And by only focusing on three things, you're not overwhelming yourself. If you are on a painful day, getting three things done is nowhere near as hard as having to get your entire to-do list done. So you almost get more done by focusing on doing less. And those would probably be the two biggest things that have helped me. And also knowing when to take the time out and taking rest when you need it.
Yeah, brilliant. They're amazing tips. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.